Grit and grace, that's how we grow. Step by step and child by child we know. There's power in the words we say. We lift the voices, light the way. Grit and grace, it's a journey we all share. For every child everywhere.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Grit and Grace, a literacy journey. I'm your host, Gretchen Gadel, along with my mother and co-host, Angela Hanlon. And as you know, here on Grit and Grace, we talk about the real work, hard lessons, and the heart behind school transformation. So today's episode is going to be centered around the mindset and the motto that we have now officially adopted. It's no longer a slogan. It is a motto. It's what we believe in. It's what Angela Hanlon and Associates is all about. And that motto is, I'm sure some of you could guess, all means all. And we don't want this to just be a catchphrase. We want people to know that it's truly a call to action. It's a belief that's rooted in research, shaped through a real life leadership, and lived out through transformational change in schools like Matthews Elementary, which is where my mom was principal for many years. We're going to explore how this mindset changes the way we lead, the way we teach, and most importantly, the way we believe in every single student. So now we're going to talk about what it really means and give you some of the background with how we came to the phrase all means all and how it became our foundation. Okay? All right. So, Mother, here we go. What first inspired the phrase all means all for you, and why did it become so important?
Right. So going back in time, the phrase first came to me the moment I heard Dr. Jan Hasbrook in a conference presentation say, I'll never forget where I was sitting when she put the slide up, blank number of students are cognitively capable of learning to read, comma, regardless of background. And she had us guess. The people in the audience guessed anywhere from 50 to like 76%. And then the next slide, she clicked the button on her clicker and 95% popped up there. I will never forget that moment because that statistic was literally like a gut punch to me. But it was more than that. It was a wake-up call, and I took it as a call to action because it made me realize it's not the students who are the issues. It is our beliefs, it is our systems, and definitely, most importantly, more than anything else, it is our instruction, our practices. So my very first thought sitting in the seat was, and I wrote it down on my paper, then why don't we all just do that? Mm-hmm. And years later, I am still feeling that way. If 95% is possible, and that is what not only research, but evidence-based practices show us, then I still feel like, why don't we all just do that? So Gretchen, honestly, from that moment on, and I know you remember when I went to that conference, but I could not teach the same way ever again. It definitely meant that I led differently when I was a principal. And I also led differently as a superintendent because it wasn't ever about reaching some. It wasn't even about reaching most. It was about reaching all of them. All students, they're all ours. And I would say to the staff, if they walk through the doors of our school, then we will ensure that they read, that they learn, and that they're constantly making progress.
Yes.
So at Matthews Elementary, I use that belief literally as our foundation. Every professional learning session, every meeting, every faculty meeting, every grade level meeting, every decision that we made in a data meeting, all of it, it was through this lens. If 95% can, then why aren't they?
Right.
And if 90%, if 95% can, then why aren't we there yet? And if we aren't there, then what are we going to do to get there? If that is possible, then we will work and do whatever it takes until it happens. If it is possible, and we believed and adopted the mindset that it is possible, and then we came up with, then we will do it. So I literally threw out the idea of anything in literacy and in education being impossible. And you probably remember this, but I actually wrote down the word impossible in all caps on a piece of paper, kind of dramatically. But then I ripped it up into little pieces, into shreds, and I threw it in the trash can in my office as a principal and said, I am throwing out the notion of it's possible. And in a meeting, we will never again say that we can't. We may admit we aren't there and we aren't there yet, but what are we going to do to get there? So it became a non-negotiable, if you will. We stopped sorting kids. We stopped assuming that some wouldn't make it. Here was the group that was going to make it. No, all will. All will get there.
Yes.
What are we going to do to make that possible? So it is. We're here today to say it is so much more. It's not a slogan. It's not a catchphrase. It's not a buzz idea or a buzzword. It truly is a mindset. And it's a challenge to all of us as adults to change what we are doing in our schools and change until we get it. It's so that every single student learns. So today I am proudly wearing, don't know if you can see it, but my all means all exclamation mark sweatshirt. And that's what I want it to be. All means all, exclamation mark. No comma, no excuses. All means all. We can do it. Drinking out of my cup. All means all, exclamation mark. With my little aha. So this is some of the merchandise that's going to, as you know, soon be available. But it's a belief. It's a belief and it's a mindset. And to reach the 95, everyone in the building, we have to have that mindset or it's not going to happen.
Absolutely, yes. Okay, so that takes us into our next question. How did this belief play out when you were actually in the trenches leading Matthews Elementary?
So, you know, being my daughter, I am always, for years, I was glass half full. And then I changed that. I'm no longer glass half full. I am the cup runneth over. It's just overflowing. That I have been called Pollyanna. I've been called polypositive, lots of different things. But as a leader, I really felt like, because so many of those staff members were my closest friends, I just assumed that everybody was that same belief. But when I arrived, Matthews was not the place it had been when I left about 4 years before. They were struggling, incredibly low scores. Our percentages we were coming off a state average of 13% proficiency in ELA, 10 in math. The end of year benchmark on AimsWeb was about that low from the end of year before. Incredibly low morale, discouraged, defeated staff, chronic absenteeism, chronic discipline. But honestly, what I did not realize until I got there was low expectations for some students. There were staff members that believed that some will get there and some just won't, and that that's normal. And they explained that to me in a very safe setting of like, yes, but some students are great readers, some are not. Some students can read, some will always have that struggle. Some students are just better at math, some will never like to read. I had to start changing that conversation and change that mindset and say, we will not accept 30%, 40%, honestly, even 60% proficiency as success, because I see schools all the time that say, yeah, but we're meeting 60% of our students and we're beating every school around us. We're at that number, you're still letting 40% fail.
Yes.
So I jumped in and did not do any of this at students, or I'm sorry, at teachers. I worked side by side with them to create systems that supported the fact that we could get to all students, not just the ones who were the high flyers, not the ones who were easy to teach.
Mm-hmm.
There are some students, let's call it what it is. There are some students that just learn quicker. There are some students that are easier to teach in a classroom setting. We completely restructured our literacy block and master schedule, and we made the collective commitment to implement only evidence-based practices that had a 0.65 effect size or higher to make sure that no child was left behind academically. But more importantly, we built that belief and that mindset over time, and we got better at it the longer we did the work. I first, though, to all listeners listening, I first had to get the adults to believe
Yes.
that all was possible. And I had to get them to believe that before we could ever expect the students to believe it, because our poor little students, they didn't believe it either. They had struggled for so long. You know, I would have students say, but Mrs. Hanlon, I'm just not a good reader, or I don't know math, or I don't know how to read. But over time, with continued work and daily, weekly reminders to staff of this is our belief system, this is our foundation, it's all going to rise from this foundation, then the culture shifted. And I knew it had shifted when it changed from, especially in data team meeting conversations, from my students to our students. So in those weekly meetings when we were looking at progress monitoring, it wasn't that, oh, these students of mine are not making progress. No, it's these students are not making progress. What are we going to do about it? These are our students. What are we going to do about it? And then that shifted into the true mindset of every staff member, not some, but all of us. And I'm talking bus drivers, members of the PTO, our cafeteria, staff members, secretarial staff, everybody, that if they walk through the doors of our school, then by golly, they will learn to read.
Yes.
And they will all be proficient. They might not be there yet, but they are going to get there. Now, pause and say, that transformation didn't happen overnight. I didn't snap my fingers and that happened. But
No,
it happened. It did not. You know, you were there, you witnessed it, you lived it. But it happened, leaders and educators, it happened because we anchored to that belief, that mindset, all means all every single day. And honestly, it was a daily commitment that we renewed ourselves to every day. And I had to remind people. There were data meetings. We would get a new student that was 4 grade levels behind. They had always been read. It was, literally 4 or more grade levels behind. And there were people in the room that would look at me and say, now, Angie, this might be the one that doesn't get there. And I would say no. And there were times when I would be overcome to the point of tears because there were so many difficult situations that came along for us. Mm-hmm. And I would say, but remember, we've committed to all. We've committed to all. So all means all. So how are we going to get this student there? It may look impossible, but remember, we wadded that up and threw that word out. And we've committed to all. So what are we going to do in response to this data? What's our plan? And it was always just, where are we? And then what's our goal? Where are we? What growth have we made? If we haven't made growth, then what's our goal? And that third question of John Hattie, if you aren't, how close are you? If you're not there, then what's your next step? And it was always about then, just what's the next step to get them there because they're all going.
Right. Right. And so, I just want to point out when you made this shift, it was revolutionary. And especially, and I knew that you would. I mean, I remember when you encountered this research when I was a kid, but by the time you became a principal, I was in college and
Yeah.
I was going through the teacher preparation program. And I was hearing about all of these things that you should be doing. And then I would come home at night and I would hear you talking about how you were having to break all of the mindsets that those things I was learning had created to do this revolutionary concept. And I remember thinking, oh, yep, there are going to be some roadblocks to this.
Yeah.
Because there was just such a difference in what we are taught versus then what you were creating and what you were expecting. And so it made college very difficult for me some days to sit there and hear about, like, oh, well, you should be taking an interest inventory to see which subject the students like more. And some students don't like reading, and that's okay. And I was just sitting there like, oh, just because I've heard these words, am I even going to be allowed to enter my own home tonight?
Well, and remember they had you go through all the different learning styles, and this
Yes,
student learns this way, this student learns that way. No, no. There
yes,
is science that
mhm,
tells us the roadmap for how we get students to learn to read.
yes.
Yeah,
And I want to say too that, and you handled it beautifully. You really did. But you had a lot of turnover when this became your mindset.
I
You had some
did.
people who were like, I'm just going to have to go work somewhere else because I'm not capable of changing my mindset. I don't want to change my mindset. And I want to do what I've always done because it's easy and it's natural.
Yeah, and I had a lot of pushback in the beginning on
Yes,
the all.
yes, you did.
I think that they felt maybe we could get to 60. They were at 13. So, 95 and all, that's a world away from a 13 and a 10.
Yes, it is.
I mean, can you imagine what I was saying to them? And on the first meeting, I had the 13 in red on an anchor chart right to my right when
Mhm.
I had to break the news to them that we were a focus school in the targeted school status. But over here, and I dropped it down. I had it taped up and then let it go. But here's what's possible. I saw the looks of like, yeah, yeah, like that's ever going to happen. And so I'm like, what are the things that would cause a school to be at the 13? Poverty, learning disabilities, lack of parent support, drug usage, single parent homes, English language learners, and they threw out all lack of motivation, poor attendance, discipline, all the things that you could possibly think of, and then some. And I wrote them all down. And so then I'm like, but what would happen? What would be the reasons why a school would get to 95? Well, the teachers did this, and the teachers did this, and the school did this, and the teachers did this, and the instruction did this, and we did this, and we did this. And I said, you're right. You're
Mhm.
right. You're exactly right about this side.
Yeah.
You're right about the instruction, what we are doing. And so then, if we believe that, we've got to radically own this 13 that's sitting over here because I'm not going to let anybody radically own the 95 if we're not going to radically own the 13 and say our instruction and our practices have led us to the spot that we're in. It's not
Mhm.
the students that have led us here, we have led ourselves here. It won't be the students that have led us to the 95, it will be the instruction.
Absolutely.
And I think that was the first shift. But there were people, and it was shocking to me, again, because of just my mindset, my brain. It was shocking to me to learn that there are people that truly have a fixed mindset. That, more importantly, not only that there are people that do, there are educators that do, that think some can get there and some can't. And,
Mhm.
now we're living proof No, they all can get there. And as
Right.
Jan Hasbrook said on just a couple of podcasts ago, instruction changes lives. And it
It
does.
does.
And
Mhm.
that's the thing to me that why I grabbed so desperately to John Hattie's evidence and all of his research and all of his effect sizes, because it was that the teacher's the change agent and that it is our instruction that's the catalyst for change. The students don't get themselves there themselves. We, as the educators, lead them there with our instruction. So that was just confirmation to me then that it truly is possible.
Mhm.
That if we all come together as a collective body at the time, I didn't fully understand what collective efficacy was. I knew it was a term and I knew what the definition of it was, and I knew it had an effect size. But as I started living it, when the team comes together, it really is, we can do anything. When you've got that many people with that collective mindset, and it's
Yes.
really get out of our way because we might not be there yet, but by golly, we are going there, and you can just sit back and watch us because it's going to happen.
Mhm. Yes, absolutely. Okay, so we've mentioned a few barriers, but let's get into the specific. What are the largest barriers that keep schools from fully embracing this mindset?
Well, right out of the gate, it's the belief. It is
Mhm.
limiting beliefs. It's when educators believe that a list of reasons, poverty, trauma, language differences, lack of motivation, that those equal the word can't.
Mhm.
And then in turn, it's kind of like a cause and effect relationship then, because it almost gives permission to lower the expectations for some students.
Yes.
But the research tells us that we can't. We have to keep high expectations for all. And part of this mindset of all means all, and I always want to say all means all exclamation mark, but the all means all belief, what goes right along with that then is high expectations for all. We don't ever excuse or like, okay, well, all but this one. Well, they all will except these two. They can't because of fill in the blank reason why. Another barrier, though, that I love learned from doing the work, because if you remember, very first year, as soon as this happens, I start the work with Schools Cubed on building the systems. So as a first year leader, I learned about started studying and reading and really dived is they have strong systems, those 6 systems that guide schools. So I see now as saw it as superintendent. And once you see systems work, you can't unsee it. Then you go into a school and you see, oh, this is a systems problem. So when schools don't have a clear plan, they don't have a clear instructional focus. They don't have a clear plan for intervention, professional development, collaboration. They're doing those things. They have those components, but they don't have a clear, comprehensive assessment plan. Then it
Yeah.
becomes a system. I don't know of a school that's not administering assessments, but do they have a clear, comprehensive assessment plan? I don't
Mhm.
know of a school that isn't collecting data, but do they have a system for strong database decision
Yes.
making
And
that
do
actually
we
get to the
under
point?
Mhm.
And
Go
do
ahead.
they actually analyze it and do they have it, or do they just have components of it, but it's not a system? Were you going to add something there?
I was going to say, and do we understand the difference between quality and quantity?
Yes. And are we doing the work or is it a system? Because if it is a system, one, I've learned it's a continuous cycle of improvement. Secondly, you can change out the players, but the work continues because this is how we do the work. And
Mhm.
then with a system, it is constant and it never stops. It's continuous. And schools, you're not making it up as you go. But I see so many schools start the year and think, okay, we need to have data team meetings, but they don't have a plan for when those are going to be, who's going to come, what's the agenda, what's the protocol. So when you have then a lack of systems, then you can have chaos. And that lack of structure can often lead to then an excuse for not reaching all. I also see fear in some people because they look at where they are. And I am now seeing for sure as a full-time consultant, different levels of fear for different reasons. One, there's a fear of accountability, actually owning those scores. And man, I get that one because I will say it was soul crushing to own a 13 and a 10. I had been doing the consultant work as an associate consultant for Gibson, Hasbrook and Associates. And I had worked with school turnaround schools under the leadership of Jan Hasbrook and Vicki Gibson, but I had never seen a school's data be as low as 13%. My lowest I had seen was around a 29. Well, that's a whole different ballgame. So I understand that one. There's also, this is huge, Gretchen, fear of change, but we've always done it this way and not wanting, I've had people say, I only have another year of my career. I'm going to retire in a year. I'm going to retire in 2 years. I don't want to change. Or this way. I now say, as a consultant, I look at them and say, but always doing that way is exactly what has led you to the 31% proficiency that you are looking at. And also, I think another fear is that fear of facing hard truths.
Yes.
The fear of looking at that data and looking at a 21%, a 27%, a 32%, and looking at that as the hard truth of our instruction and our practices and maybe our lack of systems, it's led us as a school to those scores. And I don't like a blaming or shaming at all. I never, me, that's never my mindset. And it's never about evaluation or gotcha. Where we are is simply this. And here's what I find the beauty of. It's simply the answer to John Hattie's first question of where are we? This is where we are. No more. This is where we are. We're not staying there. That's the beauty of, I always say to schools, it's fine to admit where you are because guess what? You're not staying there. And by God, if you're with Angela Hanlon and Associates, let me tell you, you're not staying there. But you're really not. But to all schools, you don't have to stay there. It just answers the question of where are we? Ask yourself then the next question, where are we going? And set that next goal. And then two, let's be honest. I feel like this is kind of our honesty episode. Some adults have never been asked to take responsibility for the student's learning. And they've been allowed to say, yes, but this student, and these are some I've heard, yes, but this student's stagnant. But Angie, they are in the referral process for getting an IEP, so that's why they're stagnant, meaning it's fine that they're stagnant and made no progress, but this student has an IEP, so they're naturally going to be lower for anyone else. Those things, or this student is tier 3, those should not be a life sentence.
But we've been trained. It's almost like those have been sentence starters, paragraph frames, prompts. Like we have been trained in how to use those phrases.
But if we name it, then we can dismantle it.
Yes.
This is the work I've been doing the last two years. I've realized if we name a problem, then we can fix it. If we name it, we can fix it. If we won't just name it and call it what it is, then it will become a barrier. We'll never get then to equity. And equity doesn't happen because we say the word equity. We can't say, oh, we're going to be equitable. No, equity happens when we believe all students can, and then we act accordingly.
Yes.
So I believe that mindset is the way around the barriers that we are facing in our schools as educators right now. No blame for how we got there. I just want to give hope and the answer for how we can get then around the barriers.
Absolutely. Okay, so now I'm excited for this question. What does professional development look like when it's driven by all means all? And first, I want to clarify before I let you answer. I want to clarify. Okay. Professional development has become a buzzword. Okay?
Yeah.
It's become something that people feel that they have to stick in their calendar. So, one, let's clarify there is a difference between professional development and a teacher workday. Huge difference. Okay. Also, if you are providing professional development, you are developing professionals. You are making professionals better. So you want to make sure that your professional development is beneficial. If your staff is doing something well, you don't need more professional development on it. Your professional development should come from those honest conversations. And then now, Mother,
Yes.
I'll let you.
Okay. Thanks. And you're so right about that too. I also want to point out there's a difference between professional development and professional learning.
Yes.
And professional development and professional growth. But as you explained, professional development, I learned a long time ago, anything in education, read it backward. Are you developing your professionals?
Mm-hmm.
So I feel as an instructional leader, we are constantly doing two things in our job: increasing the knowledge and growth of our teachers, increasing academic success. So, professional development, what does it mean if it's driven by the all means all mindset? First of all, it stops being optional. I write about this in the book, It's Possible. I had been delivering professional development, but it wasn't being implemented. It's almost as if that professional development had been optional.
Yes.
Almost like a suggestion. You have worked in places with that mindset.
Mm-hmm. Multiple.
But if every student deserves great instruction, then every adult must be equipped to deliver it. So when professional development or professional learning is provided, then leaders, there must be an expectation for implementation. Is that the pause hand?
Yes. Can I please say something?
Yes, go ahead.
So when you say if you're providing professional development, then your teachers should be expected to implement it. All right. There are times where if you have not done your research, you're going to accidentally provide trash professional development that, for the love of all things holy, should not be implemented. Leaders, it is so important to do your research. Don't just bring somebody in because, oh, it's a professional development day and we have to do something. No, make sure it is good. Make sure it is high quality. Please, please.
Working as a teacher, still in the field, in the classroom. I'm glad you said that, and that's going to lead me to my next thing. But I've got so many thoughts on that. Okay, just let me get going, and I'll come back to that. All means all professional development, though, must be data driven. What you're saying, not preference driven. We don't send out a survey. Oh, what would you like to hear? It's not about what teachers would like to hear. It's about what our students need us to know. So if our data is showing that the entire school is struggling with fluency and nobody's reading at grade level, or only a small percent, that's what we offer professional development on. And two, we can't just do these standalone PD days. I think that people look at professional development as, all right, well, we've got 3 days to fill on a calendar. We've got 5 days throughout the year. What are we going to do? I know schools that it's January, they have a PD day in March, but they still don't know what they're going to do for it. I have gotten requests in December, January of this year. Can you do a professional development day for us in March, and we'll let you pick the topic? No. Well, first of all, my schedule was booked, but no, we need a well-planned out focus. We've got to have an instructional focus. What's the data telling us that this needs to be? Data that's embedded in our walkthroughs, our coaching, our team meetings. Where are the teachers struggling? Where are they struggling at? What do you see that the teachers need? These have to be data-based decisions that we're making. What do our teachers need? And then what you so strongly were voicing is we have to make a commitment and pledge to our teachers that it will be evidence-based. I want evidence-based, not just research-based, because anybody can research anything. That we're only going to bring them practices that have decades of evidence to show this will work in your classroom. The
Yes.
other thing is we've got to tell them how.
Mm-hmm.
I see that's one of the biggest errors in professional development. We have someone come in that talks about what needs to be done or what we need to do, but then no one ever goes to the level of saying to teachers, but this is how you do it. This is what it looks like in the classroom. This is what it sounds like. That's a commitment that I give to my audiences, whether I'm at a conference speaking, whether I am there for one of their professional development days, or whether I'm going to be with them all year in staff
Yes.
training. One, I will never, ever tell you what to do without telling you how. I am never going to bring you anything that's not at an effect size of bare minimum 0.63. That's explicit instruction. That's the lowest thing I'm going to give you. I'm going to give you things that are 0.85, teacher clarity, assessment capable learners 1.4, collective efficacy 1.5. So it's got to be clear, purposeful. I say all the time in education and in leadership, our work must be purposeful, intentional, strategic.
Mm-hmm.
So when our professional learning is anchored then in all means all, it stops feeling like something extra,
Yes.
something that's being done to teachers or thrown at teachers. It becomes part of the climate that if we work here, we are constantly going to exhibit and get to experience professional growth and professional learning. When we go to a data team meeting, we will leave that knowing more than we did when we walked in the door. When we have a time of collaboration, we will walk out of there knowing how to do the next thing that we need to do. We will have reviewed data. We're going to know what to do and how to do it to have an impact on our students. When we come together as a team, even in a faculty meeting, we're going to do a check-in. Here is where we are in our instructional focus, sharing the relevance for students. What do you find challenging about that? Where are you struggling? All right, who is having success in their room and how can you now share the way you're doing it? Learning from one another. It truly is developing a culture and a mindset for that work. I hope that addresses what you were kind of hoping I would answer with that.
Oh, yes.
And there's
Yes.
a difference. I have lived it. I have lived where professional development, where these standalone days, no focus, no expectation for implementation. It was a sit and get. We went, okay, it was a nice day out of the classroom. I sat by my best friend. I'd have Christy on one side, Sarah, Samantha, Ash, someone else on the next side. And then they might have had great snacks, great lunch, or whatever, but there wasn't this expectation then of how is the implementation going to now look like in our rooms? How will we know if we're getting better? And here's the other important thing. What's the coaching and support going to look like for this follow through? What's the accountability of implementation going to look like? Again, not a gotcha, not evaluation. That's where principals mess it up. But what's the level of coaching and support that now that I've given? This training's been shared. This learning's been shared with the teachers. Now, as a leader, how am I then going to use all of our resources to support those teachers to make sure that happens in their classrooms? Sorry, I got carried away on that. That's one of my big pet peeves is that we do
it
that
has
wrong.
become mine too. It has become mine too. And I'm just going to be 100% honest. And my brother,
That always scares me a bit, though. You unfiltered kind of scared. But go ahead. Go ahead. You go.
okay,
You go.
so
Go.
I'm going to say this, and then I've got a side story on that I think
Okay,
people are just going to
dokie.
love. Okay. What did you say?
I said, okie dokie. Go ahead.
Okay, so first, my brother and I are both educators, for those of you who don't know that. And we have had conversations about how it is so hard to sometimes sit in professional development when we are your children and we know what professional development could be and we know what it should feel like. And then, we're both very respectful people. We're never going to get up and be like, "Oh, that's wrong," or "Oh, that was a waste of time." But we sit there and we're like, that's actually going to make someone go backwards. Or, "Oh man, that's not the message that we needed to hear today." Or, "Oh yeah, man, that's not really related to what our data is showing." And it is so hard. It is so difficult.
Brother has texted me from trainings before and been like, hey, da 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 da. I don't think that's research based, and I'll be like, it's not. Shouldn't it be? Shouldn't it be this? Or shouldn't I really be doing this? And
Yeah. And this was really bad. I feel kind of guilty about it, but in the moment it came down to um all means all and the students and what was best for the children. I was once sitting in a professional development setting, and I go in there and I tell myself that it's going to be the best speaker that I've ever heard. I go in there with an open mindset because that's how I want people to treat you.
well,
So
thanks.
you're welcome. So I go in and I'm sitting there, and on about the third slide, I was like, "Oh no, this isn't this isn't good." And I was sitting next to a first year who she was going into her first year of teaching, and I could tell she was overwhelmed. And I just reached over. This is terrible. I feel so bad. I reached over and I just closed her notebook, and I was like, Mm-mm. Just I'll talk to you. I'll talk to you later, but
This
just
isn't it.
just don't write that down right now. Just don't write it down. But okay, so you in the filtering and the censoring. The other day, someone had mentioned something. I was in a store that we both frequent often, and you weren't there. I was just there by myself. I was killing time waiting for my pizza to be ready at another local restaurant.
Must have been Broadway, my
It
favorite
was.
location. Shout out to Broadway.
So I'm walking around, and one of the girls that works there that we're really good friends with, she says to me, she goes, "Are you waiting on a pizza?" And I was like, "I am. You know me. It's a Friday afternoon. There's only one pizza that I can have with my soy allergy, and yes, I'm waiting on my pizza." And she was like, "Yep, I always know when you're in here by yourself, you're waiting on a pizza because your mom's not with you." And I was like, "Okay, I do occasionally buy things for myself." And I was like, "But when you have someone who loves you and wants to do it for you, why not take advantage?" And also, I think it's to make up for all the censoring, for
Oh
all
my
the
gosh. So, listeners, she keeps wanting to do a completely unfiltered podcast episode, and I don't know that I'm up for that. If you'd like to hear that, though, a completely unfiltered from both of us, if you send it to me, if you put that on social media or whatever, reach out in Facebook Messenger. If I get enough, then we'll do a completely unfiltered one and let Gretchen just have her moment.
And I will bring you my all. Just let me tell you, I've got things to say.
Alrighty, moving on.
Okay, so what advice would you give to a principal or district leader who wants to start building this mindset across their school or system?
First, start with the belief themselves. You can't lead what you don't believe, and you cannot lead what you don't know. So it is a mindset. Before you even shift systems, before you shift your structures, you have to establish that mindset. And
Yes.
it begins with one very bold question that I believe as educators we need to stop and we need to ask ourselves. Do you believe that all students really can learn to read and succeed, comma, regardless of background, language, or label? Do you believe that? And if so, do we, your team members, do we believe that? And if your answer is a confident yes, then that's your first leadership challenge. Is then making that mindset of yours visible. And I've learned it really, really helps develop a sense of urgency. One of my favorite words, one of my favorite phrases. But talk about this in every meeting. Model it in the decisions that you're making. Post it in classrooms. Post it in your data team meeting. Bring every single thing back to all. How many are reaching proficiency? How many are not? And what are you going to do about it? Just because they aren't, it doesn't mean, well, 60 are, 40% aren't. That's going to no. Then right after that data meeting, how are we going to address that 40? Though that 40% that is not there.
And
All
part of
means
your
all though, but it does need to be visible, but it can't just be a poster we slap on the wall. It's got to be done through the lens of which every single instructional decision and leadership decision is made for how to reach all. And you don't know this as a leader if you're not in classrooms. We cannot do all means all work from an office. We've got to be in the classrooms watching instruction. We've got to be looking at student work. I love to talk about looking at student work samples with Dr. Mitchell Brookins. He and I both believe strongly in that. Look at the student work. Listen to a student read. Ask questions like, who is learning? Who is stuck? What are we doing about the ones who are stuck? Who are the ones that are stagnant? What are we doing? Who are the ones struggling in intervention? Why? Watch those intervention lessons. Is it a pacing problem? Are the teachers not giving enough repetitions? Are they not doing the intervention with fidelity to the program? But leadership, therefore, must be present. It's got to be visible. It has to be instructional. Yes, I know. We have to manage the buildings, but that's not going to change our data. It's the instructional leadership that's got to be focused on the outcomes. So our work must always be purposeful, intentional, and strategic. And then after you have that leadership mindset, you have that level of accountability, you've got that sense of urgency. You then, I know from systems work, you've got to then build a leadership team that has that exact same mindset, that exact same belief system, because this work, we write about this in It's Possible. This work is just too big to carry alone as a leader. And it won't happen.
Yes.
It won't happen. One principal can't make this happen. One standalone teacher can't make this happen. But a group of collective people can. And you can train your teacher leaders, your instructional coaches, your assistant principals to speak the exact same language. You can train them to hold the same level of expectations and accountability. Then after that step, you anchor what you were talking about earlier. You anchor your professional development in this mindset that we're going to do this to reach all. We anchor our data meetings in. It's not that they aren't there. It's just that they aren't there yet. So what are we going to do in response to the data? But every teacher, every individual in that room walks out of a data meeting with a plan. As the teacher, I know what I'm going to do in whole group and small group for those students that are not making progress. As an interventionist, I know what I'm going to do and what I need to change. I have a plan then for my intervention lessons. As a special education teacher, I've looked at the data. I've listened to how my students are doing with a small group with the teacher. What's the regular ed teacher saying? What's the intervention teacher saying? What's my piece then going to be? See, we all come together to bring that learning to all those students. Our coaching cycles, we've got to, again, purposefully, intentionally, strategically use our instructional coaches. We don't say, oh, we'll go forth and coach. Oh, cross your fingers, man, I hope that works. Hope teachers come along for the coaching. No, if we truly want results, then we coach in these short cycles. Here is our instructional focus. So then that coach is going and working with teachers on that instructional focus. So we don't have 12 different initiatives going on. That's a fatal flaw I see schools do. They've got 8, 10, 13 things going on. If you
Yes.
really want collective efficacy in your staff, give people a common purpose, one thing at a time, with consistent support on the one thing. When they
Mhm.
get good at it, go to your next thing. I really feel that as leaders, we are messing this work up. We are either helping it thrive in schools or we're hindering it. I wish there was a nicer way of saying it. I don't know how to say it. But then, lastly, no, this is long term work. This is not something that gets done overnight. This is not something that's going to happen in 6 months. You are shifting culture. You are shifting mindsets. You're shifting beliefs. And here's, I feel like, the biggest shift. You're shifting people out of doing something out of mere compliance to commitment to the work.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that takes a few things. That takes clarity. You've got to know that focus and have that plan. Consistency, where you never stop the work as the leader. You don't take a back seat when it gets hard. No, you have courage and you step up and you boldly lead. And then every single step forward matters, because when you change the adult mindsets, you then can change the student outcomes.
Mhm. Yes. And so one thing that I want to point out is when you are a leader and you are working through this change, like you said, you have to be out of the office. You have to be in the classrooms. When you are an instructional leader, there aren't part of your jobs that disappear. If you want to do
Right.
this work, you are adding more to your daily job. And the way you survive that is when you're forming that building leadership team, you are thinking about who is responsible? Who can I delegate some of these things to? Because if you're having a building leadership team, then those people should be leaders. So often we forget that a lot of teachers go into education because we loved school. We enjoyed being the teacher's pet, the teacher's helper. You know, when you were 8 years old, you loved being the one to take things to the office. A lot of teachers are still ingrained that way. And we take pride in knowing if a teacher has a question about fluency, I'm the person that they can come to talk about that. You know,
Yeah.
those things are
And
meaningful.
this work, though, one of the effects of it, one of the outcomes that I've not only lived, but we share, and it's possible. One of the things is it grows future leaders, it grows
Yes.
leaders. And
Mhm.
teachers, there are teachers, like you're saying, they are craving the opportunity to be a leader in that school.
Yes, and make a note right now.
Grow those leaders, and then let them lead. It doesn't have to be you. And then I shouldn't be the only one making decisions. It's not a one person leading the work. It's a team of people. Place trust in those leaders. Place
Mhm.
trust that as a leader, I don't have all the answers and I don't have to have. And that was freeing for me,
Yes.
that I could rely. I had on my leadership teams, one of them, I'm going to call her name, Angie. I had Angie Jackson, who has a brilliant mind
Mm.
for what intervention can be. I had Sarah, who had an amazing mind for special education, about how it didn't have to be a life sentence. I learned so much for them. We all agreed at every leadership team meeting, leave our egos at the door. Here's the task before us, the barrier before us. They're not going to be blaming sessions, excuse sessions. They're
Right.
going to be problem solving sessions. And here's the thing, I, as the leader, I don't have to have the answer. Anyone in that room can come up with that answer. I just have to make sure then that we carry out the work, and I
Exactly.
support them. I support those leaders in making sure they can go forth and do that work. And that's
We need,
empowering. And it
yes, we
also
need,
builds trust in your staff. The trust, they begin to see you as a leader differently. Would you agree or disagree with that as a teacher who's seen this work be done?
oh, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. And I think, another thing that we have to be mindful of, and we need to do an episode on this, like write this down. We need to do an episode on how to pick members for your building leadership
Yeah.
team. Because it's not, oh, well, she's been teaching 30 years. She's probably got a lot of good things to say. Not always. Not necessarily.
You do. I learned that. That was one of the first things when I started saying, when I was going to put my leadership team together for the very first time, and I was learning all about this and studying all this research. And I really talked through that with Patty Montgomery. And she had said, your choices will make or break. This is not a direct quote. This is just kind of how I remember the conversation, but your choices can make or break this leadership team.
Mm-hmm.
You have got to, you don't choose the veterans. You don't, not necessarily, maybe it is the veteran, I mean, Christy was one of the veterans, but you choose the people, one that got the right mindset for the work, but they're also a leader. I chose one of the quietest people in the building, but behind closed doors in her room, she was killing it.
Yes.
That was Ashley. But then Ashley, we've got to do an episode with them too, because Ashley was like, me? No. I'm like, oh yeah, you are absolutely a leader in this building. So you pick the people that one have that right mindset, but like you said, are really willing to step up and do that work. And they are problem solvers. And there's a wealth of that in our schools. We just have to tap into that people. But you're right. Though the people we put on those teams, that will either lead to that work happening, or it can also be a hindrance to that work happening. Yeah.
Another thing to think about is when you start this work, that building leadership might be you and 2 other teachers. Don't feel that you have to have 5. If you don't have 5 people that are there yet, then you start with your 2 and you build the others up. And then as you see people start believing in this work, you be like, okay, now you're ready. Now you're ready to have some leadership decisions. Okay, so one more thing. We've kind of gone on a tangent here, but one more thing. No, it's totally fine. It's all been, I think, great information.
Okay.
I'm going to say one more thing about data meetings. Okay, when you have data meetings, and you have those kids that you say are stuck or they're not making progress. Okay, that's visible. We can see that in the data. But when you say, how are we going to help them grow? We've got to start including a time frame in our goal.
Yeah.
A win. If you are in the 3rd or 4th grade and you're reading 3 words a minute, it's going to take more than one school year to close that gap. So we've got to say, okay, when are they going to be on grade level? And then you mark that date and say, okay, so we've got 2 school years. What are we doing in those 2 school years to make it happen? There has to be a win. There has to be a win factor. That's something that I've really noticed is not there. And I have to have grace with myself, and I've had to explain this to others. They're like, and I've had someone say to me, like, hey, I've listened to your podcast and you say all means all, but what are you going to do when all of your kids aren't, if you have a student who's not on grade level by the end of the year? And I'm going to say to myself the same thing that I, said to the person who asked me this question. It's when. They might not hit grade level while they are in my classroom because the gap is so large, but what goal do I have in mind? What am I going to do to make sure that they meet that goal by the end of 5th grade? What am I doing in the process?
It's setting goals to lead them to the ultimate of the all. Mm-hmm. So when we were at 13%, that was not going to happen the next year. Right. So we looked at our beginning of year benchmark. We set an end of year goal. Is the goal always to get to 95% or 100? You bet. That's not feasible though. So you set those measurable goals along the way. When we had our lowest group of students, was that one group of 3rd graders. You served as their intervention person. You remember the group I'm talking about. They were the lowest. It was the largest gap in the school. We knew we were not going to be able to close this by the next benchmark. That wasn't even rational. So what we did was we looked at what is our long-term plan. We looked at then which staff member has the greatest skill set of closing the gaps. It happened to be our fourth grade teacher, and these were second graders that were going to be moving into third. So we made the decision to take that person to third and have them loop with her third and fourth because we knew she was the best at closing the gap. She had a track record of it. Was that her choice? No. Was she willing to do it for the betterment of the team? Yes. Yes, she was immediately. Yes, she was. I could see it in her face. Like, you've got to be kidding me that you're asking me, comma. But yes, my answer is yes, because I know it's what's best. So then we had a plan, like you're saying, we had a plan for when we could get there. Now, we also then, every single benchmark, we set our end of year goals and then looked at what's the distance between, and we set our middle of year goals.
Yes.
And then in the middle of beginning and middle of the end of year goal, we looked at those 6 to 8 week, right there, 6 to 8 weeks in between. We had a data team meeting to see, are we on pace to hit the middle of year goals? Do we need to adjust those? What do we need to do? It's not that, oh, we're not there, so it's fine. We'll get there sometime. No, there's got to be, where do you want to be at the end of 1 year? Where do you want to be as a school at the end of 2 year? So look at, Laura Stewart said in a previous podcast, plan this out. Like this might be a 3-year goal of turnaround for your school. Where do you want to be at year 1? Where do you want to be at year 2? Where do you want to be at year 3? You don't just say, okay, well, it's August, September, or beginning of your benchmark. We're at 25% proficiency. Let's all set 95 by April. No. So like you said, and it's many steps and many goals along the way to get them there. Thanks for pointing that out.
Absolutely. And I'm going to say this too. If we truly believe that this is a science, with that science comes a formula. Like this is a very, your data team meetings, like you should be sitting there. Someone's doing math. Someone is counting out the number of weeks and the words per minute and, divide. I mean,
it's strategic.
Process. It is.
It's strategic. It is. Yes.
Okay. So let's see. All right, how do you respond when educators say, but our kids are different, and they bring up those barriers? They say, we have more poverty, we have more trauma, we have more background limits. How do you respond to those educators?
I hear this now as a full-time consultant. I've always heard it doing the work, but as a full-time consultant, I hear it in almost every single school I work with. I've heard it in almost every single school in the beginning of the work. And I understand. I've really had to watch my words, and I've really had to do some soul searching about this. And I've gotten to the point, I understand where it comes from. And here's why. I do think they believe that it is a barrier. In all sincerity, because it has always been a barrier. Mm-hmm. So they've come to believe that but it always has been. So it's not about ignoring that barrier, because I understand that those are barriers. It's about not letting that barrier become an excuse and an out, and allowing us to opt out on that student because of that barrier. Because it's always going back. I learned this from Vicki Gibson and Jan Hasbrook. Always go back. What's the data telling us? What's the research say on that? It's going back to, though, but there's evidence that shows 95% of students are cognitively capable of learning to read, regardless of background. And here's the if. See, here is the if that teachers need to know. If we provide, are you ready? Explicit instruction on the foundational skills of reading. Those are our two. You said a minute ago, there's a roadmap. There is a formula. There is a roadmap framework for how this work is. It is shifting everything. So here's another thing. If you're at 13, 25, 31, 33, my goodness, even 40% proficiency, everything is going to have to be shifted.
Yes.
It's a shift in everything. It's a shift in mindset. It's a shift in your systems, your practices. But more importantly than anything else, you're going to have to change your, are you ready? Instruction. Also, our beliefs need to change. And once our beliefs change, our expectations change for the students. So we just can't let that stay a barrier.
Right.
I'm not saying that we don't acknowledge this child is living in poverty. This child has trauma. So that tells us that we're going to have to change our instruction because students' brains who have lived through trauma do need to be taught differently. But it's then that means we are going to change our instruction to reach those students. But it can never be a barrier and it cannot be an excuse. But I do understand why it happens because in those teachers' track record and for that school's history, it has served as a barrier. My message, though, is, but it doesn't have to. And I think that when I say all the time, have high expectations, that's great in the summer. That's great in August. That's great in September. But then we get that beginning of year data. And so often what I see schools do is lower the bar. Lower the expectations to where the students are. No, 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 no. We keep the level of expectations high. And then here's what we do. We don't go down to where the students are. We take them to that high level through our instruction. That's the difference.
Yes. Yes, it is. And, you know, in this process, what is so sad and what so many people don't realize is when you have kids that are truly living in poverty, when you have kids that are truly experiencing trauma, they are being told that they can't.
Often.
Everywhere they look, they are being told that they can't. So I've had to have a lot of conversations with kids where I've had to be the person to say, but you can. Your
Yes.
life does not always have to look like this. So
Yes.
not only is this a change of mindset with your staff, oh, in so many examples, it's a change of mindset with your kids too.
It is,
And
yes. And developing that in them.
yes,
Again, that the power of the word yet. I know you haven't gotten there yet, but you will.
mhm,
You will. And it's my instruction that's going to lead you there, but you will. And then their mindset changes and their actions change when they see that someone fully believes in them because often they've never been told
no.
that they could.
And it's doing simple things. It really is to build their confidence. I can
Yeah.
think of one example where I had a student who, they knew when they looked at their shoes and compared their shoes to everyone else's sitting on the carpet. They knew, like, I'm my shoes aren't as good, they're falling apart. Well, instead of sitting there and let them think that, I was like, do you know that your shoes are my favorite color? And instantly it went from a, I feel down about myself to, well, you know what? My shoes might not be brand new, but my goodness, they're Miss Hanlon's favorite color. And I saw those shoes almost every day with a smile on that kid's face of, look, my shoes are your favorite color. And I'd be like, oh my gosh, they are. You're right. And it was just such a simple comment, just a simple thing, but it boosted their confidence. And that's what they needed. And, it was one of those things of then that turned into, oh my gosh, come bring those red shoes over here to this table with me. And you've got your red shoes on today. Now I know you're going to be able to tell me what sound this letter makes.
Yeah.
It's the simple things that you have to watch, that one you have to watch for. And two, you have to take the time to do and to recognize. And, I have gotten, and this is where, I get the label grit. When people look at me and they say, well, they're poor, I look at them and say, and what are you doing about that?
Yes.
Because as a teacher, and especially as a school district, there are things that you can do rather than sitting there and saying, this kid stinks. Well, they can't afford to have the water on at their house. All right, let's get a group of people together. Let's come up with the money to pay that water bill so that this kid has water and that they're not sitting in class smelling terrible. Or, well, they don't have electricity right now. Okay, what are we doing to fix
Yeah.
that? I have seen parents come to you with a job application that you have helped them fill out. It's about we have to recognize these things and we have to make people believe that things can be different and we have to help them. You've had parents come to you and say, could you help me get into college? And you have. You've sat there with them. You've helped them fill out the paperwork. You've gone to the bank with parents because they were intimidated and you've helped them open a checking account. You have to have a heart for people because all means all. If we truly believe that, it's not just the kids, it's their families too. How are we making life for these people?
And how are we embracing those families to bring them along on this work every bit as much as those children? Because there are families that don't believe they can either. So it's just, I've learned that if you have the mindset of all means all, you teach differently, you support differently, you intervene differently, and you lead differently.
You just kind of start to live differently as
you
well.
do. Yeah, you do. Yep. That could be a whole separate episode, but go ahead.
It should be. But okay, so we have talked a lot today. And as I'm looking through some of the questions that we have left, I'm worried that we're going to become redundant and we're going to start cycling into things that we've already talked about.
Lead me to where you want to lead me, dear.
Okay. So I am going to lead you back to yourself. You are the one, you are in multiple schools. You are seeing this work on a much broader level than I am. So I think that the most important question that we have left is, what does it mean for a school to live this mindset? To go beyond saying the words, what does it mean to actually live it?
Well, it means being visible. And it means that every decision you're making from the standpoint of how are we going to get all. So our decisions, our actions, our visibility is just different. It shows up in our interventions. It shows up first, though, in our tier 1 instruction. If we can get all of them, then let's start right there. And then in our leadership decisions, if we believe it, then we teach it, we intervene, we support, we lead differently, as I said a minute ago. It's visible in your scheduling. Are your strongest teachers working with your neediest learners? It shows up in an intervention schedule. Are your strongest interventionists, and are you putting the resources pushing to the grade level with the largest gaps? Or are you saying, well, yeah, they've got the largest gaps, but we don't have the people because we've got 4 people that are assigned at grade 1. Yeah, but if that's the largest gap, you're going to have to then shuffle that intervention schedule. So then it means our decisions are different based upon what that data is telling us. But it also means no student gets written off and no educator is left unsupported. It's building the culture where it's not only all students, it's also all educators. All means all for all of them. Okay, so this educator hasn't had the right mindset in the past. Their data hasn't been great in the past. Not because of them, because they haven't been coached, trained, and supported enough to get there. It's literally looking at it from the lens that every single person can get there. They're just not there yet. But for that building leader, it is leading differently, leading every faculty meeting with that mindset that we are going there. It's leading every time of collaboration. Your work that you're going to do. Here's the outcome. Here's what I need you working on. Here's why, because this is what our data is telling us. So this is what I need you working on in this set professional development session. Look at what you're going to be teaching. Look at the upcoming standards together as a team. Write learning intentions and success criteria on that.
Yes.
Look at your data. Come up with what do you need to then be saying out of your mouth to those students to close those gaps at that small group teaching table.
Mm-hmm.
If my students are struggling on the recent unit assessment with making inferences, I am then going to look at those upcoming units, the next 6 to 8 stories, and I'm going to build all of those questions in for how to make inferences and draw conclusions. They're not going to be enough on the sides of my margin. So I'm going to need to go in and do that deliberate work. And I think that's what I think those are the steps. So what does it mean to live it? It's to make the decisions that will help this be possible. And it's not just saying the words, it's letting everyone live, and it's letting everyone see you live and lead by example. This isn't a catchphrase that you're saying, you're living it. And in those meetings, you're making sure that you're talking about all.
Mm-hmm.
When you're in rooms, you're looking for, are we reaching all? If not, what's that teacher's next step? Give it to them in coaching and support. We're not giving up on teachers. We're not giving up on students. We're not giving up on parents. Maybe they haven't been engaged yet, but we can get them engaged by extending the right level of love, encouragement, support, by having the right type of literacy nights and events to truly engage our parents in a meaningful way. Are we doing that? Have we gone to that? Are we setting goals that represent the all means all mindset? So every decision then is that all means all mindset. Is it evident in the decision that you've made and the action that you're taking?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And, when you mentioned the parents, people have to realize there's some healing that we have to do there, because when we haven't had this mindset, we have parents who were those children that we believed couldn't do it, that we passed along.
Go ahead.
When we talk about parent involvement, we have to come to a place where we realize that, as schools, as an institution, we've hurt some of these people we have. What are we going to do to make these people feel comfortable? What are we going to do to take that imitation away from a parent teacher conference, from, being active in your child's learning? And also, too, being an involved parent is not calling the school and saying, my child needs to sit in a classroom that's 73 degrees every single day, and they need to have access to this, that, and the other. Being involved as a parent is, okay, being a part of those conversations. Where is my child? Where are they going? How are they going to get there? Just making the parents be involved. And for the how they are going to get there, that doesn't always need to turn into what can the parent do at home. And raise your child, and just let us tell you what we are doing and how we can work together.
You hit upon something that I found out as the principal at Matthews.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't a high level of parent engagement. So we can't say a student isn't making progress. We have to look at why.
Yes.
Why? Mm-hmm. What have we offered that student? What was the instruction that they've been given? It goes back to the why. I couldn't say, well, there's no parent engagement. I had to find out and determine why. And I did a large study to figure out why.
Yes.
And here's what I found. There was a history of failure.
Mm-hmm.
There was a history of failure. Those parents had been the struggling students. Of course, they had a different mindset about school. It was not only shifting my mindset, the staff mindsets, the students' mindsets. It was also about shifting the mindset of the parents.
Yes.
And it was graciously opening up the schools and then really educating, training the parents and shifting their mindset as we went about the work. Here's the thing, though. It goes back to all means all. Are we embracing, coaching, supporting, encouraging all? And it also means our parents. But don't
Yes.
just say a blanket statement of, well, we don't have parent engagement. Well, why is that?
Mhm.
What have you done? Look at it. What have you done to engage them? Has it been you've not done the right thing to engage your group of parents? Are they coming out of a history of failure? Because then it's not going to be a natural act for them to do. So it's guiding them all there through grace, grit, empathy, and it's just looking at no, all means all stakeholders, parents, community members, because you might not have had the support of your community either. School board members, administration, it's everybody. It
Yeah.
really is all means all. And that's the reason I'm so excited to be actually taking this as a mindset and an initiative
Mhm.
where, not an initiative, because initiatives fail, but truly a movement where I'm going to now, this episode's the launching point to roll this out to schools on what this work looks like and how we need to go about doing it.
Yes. And that is what I love because you said earlier when you do professional development, you're going to tell you why you need to do it and how you need to do it.
Yes.
And
Yep.
we are living that out today, okay? What can you offer people? What are your new professional development offerings around all means all? We know this is not just a mindset that you talk about. You are helping schools implement this in real practical ways. So, what can
Yes.
schools expect? How can they get involved?
So I have created, I'm so excited about this. I've worked a year and a half now on this, but we have created a new series of professional learning sessions that are designed to help schools, one, not only do the work of adopting this mindset, but actually build the leadership structure, the leadership systems, but also the instructional systems to make this work be real, to actually make it happen in your schools. We have developed a roadmap, a framework for this work. We have got the order of actually happen watching this happen, leading schools through it the past year and a half to really fine tune, look at our effect sizes, look at what we did, what professional development session had the most growth. So it's really looking and tailoring it out. This is the steps that this work needs to be done in. Here's the roadmap, and it's developing something called an instructional focus plan that if schools don't know how to go about this work, they now can have that as a resource, purchase that as a resource. It's literally every single instructional move that the leader needs to make. It's the guide for how to do it. It's truly a playbook for how to make this possible. There's going to be a national conference to introduce this, roll this out, set your calendar dates now. Here's your save the date. It is going to happen on Friday. It is February now. Friday, November 6th in Buffalo, New York. So much information will be coming out where we're going to kick this off. Schools will have the opportunity to now take a pledge and become an all means all school, all means all exclamation mark school, where they say we are committing to doing this work one step at a time with structure, with support, with clarity. We're going to build the systems that it takes to do this work. We're going to develop our people in the way it takes to do this. We're going to pledge as leaders to get into those classrooms, coach and support our people. We're going to look at data differently. And we're going to then have a focus that's guiding this work. I hope that this becomes a movement across our country where we truly look at the work we're doing, the decisions we're making, the things we're saying totally different. I hope that all leaders begin to look at this through the lens of being an instructional leader. And how do we lead this work? What does it look like? What are the steps we take? And we're going to actually lead schools through every single step of that work. I have goosebumps even talking
It's just going
about
to be
it.
incredible. I'm so excited.
And that instructional focus plan that's now going to be out there for schools, it will give leaders what they should be doing on a daily basis, a weekly basis, a monthly basis with quarterly goals embedded. It will align their actions, their moves, their leadership habits. It's going to have built-in coaching and support. It's going to have built-in professional learning opportunities. It's going to come embedded with training videos for your leadership team, for your staff. It's going to come embedded with activities that you can do with staff in collaboration, in faculty meetings. All of that's going to be in that plan, but all of it is going to be grounded in the belief that all students can learn. They can. And now we as a school, as a district, now we have a plan for how to get them there. It's written for busy school leaders that don't have time to go read all the research to figure out what this needs to look like. They don't have time, and they certainly cannot be guessing. And they cannot be guessing about this work as they go. I'm going to be giving them a plan that actually makes all means all possible. Not just part of your mission statement, but it's going to help you actually live it. And then the best part is you won't be living it alone. I'm going to walk every step of that journey with you. Sorry, that's when I get a little emotional. But I am going to lead you through and walk you through it and teach you how to do it so that you don't need me forever. You just need me temporarily to show you what it's like. And I'm going to teach you and train you about the long-term sustainable growth. So this is not another initiative that fails, but it's a movement that will forever change how you lead, how you support, how you teach, how you coach, and how you impact and touch the lives of not only your students, your teachers, your parents, and your community members. And there's going to be merchandise too, if they want to get that as well. That's just kind of the fun icing on the cake.
But it's just so exciting. It's so exciting. So if you are listening, please share this information with everyone because as we have said, all means all is not a motto. It's a catchphrase. It's not a catchphrase. It's a mindset. It's a movement. Okay. We want to see this in every hallway, every classroom, every data meeting, and every professional learning session. Because if we truly believe that 95% of our students are capable of learning to read and thriving even beyond that, then we have a moral obligation to lead, teach, and coach like it. Okay.
Moral obligation. Moral
Right.
obligation. Yes, Gretchen.
And it's one of those things, I don't even think we have to ask ourselves anymore. Do we believe that all students can learn? Don't ask yourself, just tell yourself, I believe that all students can learn. The more you say it, the more you make it a statement, the more powerful it will become. I believe that all students can learn. If you believe this, then let's start building the systems, providing the training, and holding the line until that belief becomes practice, until it is effortless. Okay? This work won't be easy. We don't do it because it's easy. We do it because our students deserve it.
Deserve it.
Yes.
Yes. Amen. They deserve it.
Yes.
They deserve it. Yes.
So let's get started. Say it with me. I believe that all students can learn. Okay.
I believe that all students can learn.
That's right. Okay. So now let's take that mindset and let's act like it. Let's make this happen. All right. Mother, anything else you want to say?
No, I'm just excited and I can't wait for this work to start happening in schools. I've got every single school that we've worked with for the last year and a half, every single school is making significant gains and they are just proving every day in their actions and their instruction that it's possible. And it's just thrilling to me to get this now to a larger audience and get it out there for all schools. All means all, right? Mm-hmm. To get it to all schools so that everyone can experience it. It's the hardest work I've ever done. It's by far the most challenging, but There's a but there, but it is by far the most rewarding work ever. Our students deserve it. We deserve it as educators. We deserve it to get to do this work. And as you said earlier, it's our moral obligation. So wrap us up. Let's close this one out.
Quickly, so these items that we've talked about, that you
Yes.
mentioned, can those be
Oh,
found on the website?
yes, yes. This will be
Remind us
up.
what the website is.
Yes, this will be up within the next few weeks. We are filming this in early February. This will be up either by the end of this month or the very first part of March. But you will already find information about this right now on our website. The website is www.angelahanlon.com. You can look at our services. There's already an all means all information on there. You'll see the merchandise up very soon. You'll see the registration link for that conference that's coming. We already have a conference sponsor, so we're very excited about this. And you'll find out the ways and the steps for how to bring this work to your school and how you reach every single one of your learners, how to reach all of them, and also all of your teachers. It's empowering for them as well. So all means all, exclamation mark.
I love it. Okay, once again, this is Grit and Grace, a literacy journey brought to you by Angela Hanlon and Associates. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Grit and grace, that's how we grow.